Hello and welcome to Queers and Soaps. I'm Eric, joined again by this one.
Karen.
Bringing me some more General Hospital this week. 1982. Laura's demise is coming up real soon. And Tommy, roll the credits and we'll chat. January 11th, 1982. I was turning 4. Yay. Steve returns from wherever the hell he was. I guess he needed time off with the family in real life, so he
He
comes
goes to a lot
back,
of medical conferences because he's the chief of staff.
of course, which means also many
Vacation.
vacations
Yeah.
for the actor. As he should. What year is this for him now? Like 18? I forget where we're
Man,
at.
John
20?
Bernardino, he like really had the best role. He just walked on, he says, everybody get back to work. And then he goes to a conference and he's on vacation.
Yeah. Audrey fills him in on all the Anne shenanigans. Richard Simmons guest stars. Is this his first guest star? He was on before, right? I can't.
I
Is
don't
this his
remember him
first?
being on before. I think this might be it, but I could Google it. No,
It
I
was
can't.
really
I don't know where my
short.
phone
It
is.
was like it was only for that like one scene.
Didn't seem like they
And
really introduced him or anything. They just were in a
no,
workout class. So maybe he did do one before.
that's what I was thinking. Maybe he came on like before, and then because it was just really strange. And I guess he does a workout class for the nurses at the
Yes.
hospital.
Yes,
It
he
seems
does. And I was really excited because this was like a huge craze in the 80s. Did
every television
every
show.
television show. We just got even in Edge of Night, we now have a dance studio where people are in
Hmm.
leggings dancing around. So this was like a very big fad.
Huge.
Yeah, where it was all everyone in leotard everywhere.
Yeah, Pam bought or Bobby bought Pam the studio, the workout studio in Dallas. Falcon Crest might be the only one that I can't think of doing that
California, they didn't care
again.
about. They already looked good. It was the rest of us
Right.
that needed the help.
Well, Richard's there to get the nurses in ship shape, I guess.
Okay.
Alan and Monica fight about Jason
Yes.
again.
Yes. She loves that baby though. She does.
Loves them.
Hmm.
Susan comes in, they exchange some words. Susan's happy, Monica's happy, she's free. Yay. Luke and Laura fight about the boat
Again.
again. They could have done this storyline without them fighting every freaking time she's in town. This is like so irritating. I would have been such a mean fan back then.
It's really frustrating
It is,
for him to constantly dismiss the fact that she hates that boat.
right?
They had the opportunity to let them live in the penthouse for a while where they were working on the boat, and Luke turned that down. And then she goes to New York, and every time she comes home, it's a creepy boat that's cold and freaks her out. Like I would have moved back in with Leslie and Rick until the boat was done if I were Laura.
I agree. I would have done that or move in with a friend or something. She has
Yeah,
enough
live
of
with
them.
Tiffany. Yeah.
Um, she wants to spend the day with him, but he's being a douche. She's like, "Well, I'm gonna be, back to work for a week," and it's just ridiculous. Same fights over and over
Because
again.
she's like, I want to stay with you all day. And basically, what she says is, I would like to bang for this entire day. And he's
Right.
like, oh, I got to varnish a counter and I got to do this. And maybe I don't have time to do what you want to do, baby, because you're always in New York having a career and crap. And it's like,
And he has no job
grow up.
right now, so
Yeah,
he could spend the day with her.
she's the breadwinner. Like, appreciate her. She's bringing in the
And
money
then they start getting along again, and then they fight again. And
about the
Leslie
same
comes in
thing.
and interrupts the second fight.
Same thing.
I
It's
know.
like rinse, repeat. If I were Jeannie Francis and Tony Geary, I'd be like, I've already said these lines 14 times.
Right,
Can I say
right.
different lines? Can I make up new lines?
Yeah, you would never make it through Bold and the Beautiful,
Oh, I
apparently.
probably not.
You wouldn't.
Is it like that?
um, yeah, it's
Okay.
pretty bad.
Oh no.
I like
Poor.
talking shit about it. I mean, I like it's entertainment. It's like that's like what do they call it? Your can't like
Like a
your
hate watch?
closet, like a hate watch. Guilty pleasure.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like a guilty. It's
That's
like
cool.
yeah, it's interesting. So Leslie comes by with fan mail for Laura. Kurt's there, and she's like weirded out by him, and she's like, "He looks familiar to me, and I can't place it." And then she leaves. She gets like the heebie-jeebies and rolls out.
Yeah, it was weird because she was also number one. She went over to see Luke and Laura, and she just wanted to say hi, and it was a very
Bring the fan mail.
uncomfortable, yeah, an uncomfortable scene to walk in on your newlyweds fighting like at each other's throats,
Yeah.
and then a weirdo walks in, and she's just freaked out by that. So she dips really quickly, and it's almost like, why did you go all the way out to the boat for 10 seconds? It's not that like, is it that close to the clinic that people can just kind of?
Yes. Everything. That's what I was trying to think. I'm like, I need a map because everything is literally on the docks. I feel like.
So it seems like Kelly's is 6 blocks from the boat.
Right.
So is that how far is Kelly's from the clinic down the street? Like I need a map.
Right.
I want a map.
Same.
I'm gonna look up for one.
So Mouse busts in, um, talks about his booze, whatever, holds a gun, same old story.
Hmm.
Leslie tells Rick about the eerie man, Kurt,
Hmm.
which I think Kurt is the guy from Falcon Crest, but when I looked his IMDb up, it wasn't. Remember Garth in the later seasons?
No, I don't.
It's Garth, and it's Richard's right hand man.
I remember
You don't
Richard.
remember him?
No, it's been
You love
a
Garth. All
minute.
right. Yeah,
It's
it's
been a
been
minute
well.
since we
Anyway,
watched
he's
that one.
he's in the last 4 seasons of Falcon Crest. But
So I
anywho,
probably would know him if I saw him on there, and that's probably why he looks super familiar to me, just like he does to Leslie.
but it wasn't listed on his credits, so I'm not 100% sure. But I mean, he's not a huge part on here. But
Mm.
I wish we had some credits on here. I have to look for some credits from back then. Um, Edward and Alan have some words. Of course, he's grumpy as usual. Edward.
I love Edward.
He's mad that Monica and him are getting divorced. He's like, "Why would you do that? You know, I told you to keep her." Blah blah blah.
He's literally like, "Can you just grow up and stay with your wife? This is really stupid and annoying." And he, you know what? He's
No.
not wrong. He's not.
And Monica is talking to Gail later, and Gail's even surprised that they're getting divorced. I guess they talked about it for so long and they never did, and she
Because
said she was fighting it and all
because
this stuff.
remember they had that conversation not too long ago where
Yeah,
Gail was like, "All of your hate sounds a lot like you want to bang Alan," and she's like,
yeah,
"Why
yeah.
don't you just
He's like,
bang
no.
Alan and that would fix the problem?" And Monica was like, "I don't want to bang Alan," but she does.
Rudy and Steve talk about Anne's shenanigans again. He's like, I don't think it's a good enough punishment just to like do it publicly at the
Listen,
cafeteria. So
Dr. Bradshaw's right. Like in this scenario, Anne
he
has
is.
slandered him in front of an audience of his peers. And all she has to do is go to the cafeteria and write a little note that says, my B, like, let's move on from here. Like that's he could have sued her for slander.
Yeah, he actually was pretty nice about it.
Yeah. And they act like he is
Um,
being nice, but he is
Luke and Laura make up again.
for the 12th time.
I think Robert's there with them. He
They're
doesn't say
so
anything.
cute when they get along, but they make us go through
I
this like
know
every time.
it's so
It's
annoying.
frustrating.
It is. Lila and Edward argue. That was fun. She tells him to stuff it because he's
Yeah.
talking shit about her going to see Robert and all that.
He's trying to get in her business because he doesn't know what she's up to and she won't tell
She
him
ain't
because
having it.
she's secretly in charge of not so secretly in charge of everything in the family. And she
Yeah.
has this little side thing going with Robert. Remember, she sent him to find someone and she's going to meet up with Robert. And he's like, "Why are you meeting with Robert? What are you doing?" And she's like, "Ain't none of your damn business."
And I think they say something about Kurt possibly being a Cassadine spy. And then he pulls out like a model boat at the end of it. And I'm like,
It's
okay.
not a model boat. It's the model boat of the Titan that was given to Laura as a wedding present.
And what is it, like a voodoo doll? A voodoo boat?
Apparently, but no, they gave her a model of the boat they're on. That's the Haunted Star.
Right.
It's a
I figured
baby
it
version
was,
of the
but
boat, but it
yeah.
was used to be called the
Yeah.
Titan because it was a cast iron piece of crap.
Mm-hmm.
Spooky boat time.
January 12th, Lee and Scotty are on. Scotty says he'll take the liquor license to Joe to give to Luke. I guess like
Mhm.
an in-between person. Heather and Anne are on. They're arguing already, which I thought they made a truce, but Anne still has a stick up her ass.
Is this because of is this when she's at the desk with Amy, when Heather's talking
Yeah.
to Amy? Well, what they were doing was they were gossiping about Anne and the incident with Dr. Bradshaw, because didn't Steve not sign her certificate? Anne's
Oh, right.
certificate.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So what Steve did to make the punishment bigger is that she has her nursing degree, but it's not signed yet because she's now on probation for, I think he said 2 months, which isn't a lot of time, so whatever. But
No, I
now
thought it was
that
only a month,
a
but
month,
maybe
maybe
it
it's
was
a
2 months.
month, maybe. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's flying around the hospital like wildfire, and Amy is spreading it, of course. So she doesn't exactly say what happened, but Heather figures it out because Heather saw that this it wasn't signed. So Anne and Heather get into it because Heather's like, "Oh, you're not really, you didn't really get your degree, blah blah blah." So they're kind of sniping at each other because that's why Anne gets mad, because it's rude and it's none of her business.
Right. Well, they did make a truce, but
Sort
what
of.
are you going to do? They were just gossiping. A New
Yeah,
Year's truce only
she
lasted
does yell at Amy. She's like, "Amy, what the hell?" Basically. And Amy's like, "I don't know."
We find out that Anne did make her public apology earlier in the day, but we didn't see
That
that. I think
sucks.
that
I
she
wanted
was,
to see that.
but I think she was just hanging something up. Wasn't she
I
just
think
writing a letter?
she wrote a letter of apology and
Or was she
posted it
supposed
in
to
the
read it?
town square, which is the cafeteria. But I don't
Mm,
think she read it or did any of that. That's why Dr. Bradshaw was so upset about the scenario.
right.
He's like, what kind of lame ass apology is this? She's no punishment, no nothing. And that's when Steve
Yeah.
decides that she won't get her nursing certificate signed until after
Yeah.
probation. So she can't go after any other doctors. I think she talks to Noah about it, and Noah's like, no yelling at the doctors, no yelling at the doctors without proof, no yelling at the doctors without visual proof, without recorded proof,
Right.
without like an affidavit proof. And she's like, yeah, I
Yeah,
get
right.
it.
I
He was
get it. I
cute.
get
He
it.
was cute.
Rose and Joe are on. There's a potential client there. I guess somebody else that Heather sent, but he doesn't
Yep.
know who is sending them, so he
He said
wants
an
to go on a
angel
mission.
sent him,
An angel sent
a
him,
hospital
but Joe
angel.
Joe wants to go on a mission to find out who it is. I don't even think he suspects it's Heather. Doesn't seem
That's
like he does.
dumb. Why doesn't he suspect Heather?
I know. I know. I mean, it didn't seem like he did, right?
He
Because
didn't.
you would think he would have just went after her, but I guess
He
he tries
didn't.
to trust her.
Well, Scotty brings it up to him because Scotty's like, "What are you doing, ambulance chaser?" And
Yeah,
he's like, "I'm
yeah.
not." He's like, "Someone's bringing me clients," and he's like,
I didn't do it.
from the hospital." He's like, "That's convenient." Like, I feel like Scotty figured it out in like 10 seconds flat.
What is
Scotty's
Lila's maid's name? I forget it again.
Stella.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Lila and her maid Stella meet up with Robert. And what was that about? What were they trying to
Jimmy Lee
do?
Holt. So this is all about Jimmy Lee Holt. So what we're doing right now, I don't know if you remember, because we're kind of in the future of General Hospital, so we know who Jimmy Lee Holt is. But
We're in all of it.
at this point, what we're looking for is, initially we were looking for the woman that Edward had an affair with
Right. That
because
was
she
the
had a
thing. Okay.
baby, and the baby was named Eric. And he supposedly lived in Europe and was going to the best schools. And then when we find Jimmy Lee Holt later, we find out that he was like raised somewhere in the Midwest or whatever, because he's got
I
an accent.
forgot. So she had hired him. Didn't she hire him for that? Like at the around Luke and Laura's wedding?
Yes. And
Yeah.
initially he couldn't find anything. He couldn't find
Right.
anything on the woman because I think the woman may have died. And
Yeah.
then he was being raised by relatives. And the whole reason she's doing this way back then, if you remember, is because she doesn't think, like me, that there's enough Quartermains. So she's going out of the box to find Jimmy Lee Holt.
So Steve makes Anne take this course again or something, I guess for him to sign the certificate.
No, he just puts her on probation. He puts her on probation. He says
What was the
technically
course they were in? They were
that was
in
the
like a
course.
course.
They were in a nursing course. This was the registered nursing course. It's for surgical nurse. So
Oh,
she would be like on the level of Bobby, but
I
until
gotcha.
it gets signed, she's not. He's very nice about it. She could have been fired for all of this
Yeah, right. Yeah.
and blacklisted because of her behavior, because she was rude to a doctor, and that's a no-go.
Mm-mm.
Not a surgeon at Dr. Bradshaw, Rudy's level.
Right. Scotty took the liquor license for Luke's boat to give to Joe.
Mhm.
As he tries to find out who is sending him clients, which I already talked about. Robert invites Rose to dinner. This was really weird. Why did he want to get close with Rose again?
No, that's not what happened. Robert called Rose because he wanted food delivered. And he figured they were going to just have dinner together because they're friends. But Rose took it as it was a date and dressed up for a date. He didn't know that. So when he came to pick Rose up, Joe said, she's getting ready for you. And Robert realized he accidentally asked Rose on a date, and then he just rolled with it.
He didn't realize that? I didn't even
No,
notice that.
because he literally was at the boat, working on the boat, doing dumb Robert Luke stuff, fixing up the boat, and he had forgotten to eat. So he thought the best idea would be to call over and kind of just have dinner with a friend. And it got turned into a date because when he came, he was
I
super
thought he was being
surprised.
a, I thought he was being a jerk because when he
No,
talked to her, he was like, "It works every time." Like I'm like, "Oh,
but I think he was not expecting it to turn into like a date. He thought he was doing a dinner date with a friend, and he thought turning on the charm. That's what he meant. He was turning on the charm works every time. He put himself in a bad position.
he
He
did
really did,
totally.
but then he
He fooled
decided
me."
he decided to roll. You'll see his face. He just decides to roll with it. And then
He
like
sure does.
while all that is happening, Scotty just decides he's going to take the liquor license to the boat by himself. Why did
Yeah.
Joe allow this? What is wrong with people? They know what Scotty's like.
Yeah. I know. I don't understand either.
Also, I love Scotty.
Um, but I don't think he didn't run into Joe, did he? I don't think Scotty ran
He
into
went
Joe.
looking for Joe.
He looked
He
for him, but he couldn't find
he
him.
couldn't find him because Joe went to the
Right.
hospital. But he did
So he
talk
just
to
figured he'd bring it
yeah.
himself.
I don't know. That was confusing because I know he talked to Joe about being an ambulance chaser and gave him a hard time about it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think he was planning on giving Joe the thing. I think he was just going to take it on his own anyway.
I think he was
Because that's what he
pretending
does.
that he was going to give it to Joe. And then when Joe got distracted by his client, Scotty saw that as an opportunity to be like, oh, I didn't see Joe.
Yeah, being shady AF.
Yeah, good for him.
Kurt tells Robert he's leaving in a couple days.
Mhm.
Then he says something like the curse will be carried out, like talking to himself or the boat.
He's talking to
So
Helena Cassadine in his mind because multiple times he says her wish will be
they're
his command.
mental.
I guess he has a psychic mental connection with Helena.
It happens.
Mhm.
Joe finds out that it was Heather sending them the clients. Scotty goes to the boat with the papers, and he messes with shit on the boat.
And he's creepy and out of
He
pocket.
is creepy. Um,
Well,
Zach cancels his.
the funny thing
What?
he does, right? He rips the nightgown up. Like
Hmm.
he's creepy. He goes all around the boat and everything's unlocked. So he goes into their bedroom and he starts
That's
touching
creepy.
everything, which is so
He
violating.
sprays their perfume and
I was
smells
like,
it, and like
the entire time, I'm like, boy, what are you doing? Like, you need
you might
help.
as well just put her underwear on his head.
Right. And then he ripped her nightgown, like her pretty nightgown, into pieces.
Yeah.
He also took a
Yep.
handful of sawdust and threw it across the varnish that Luke had just done to ruin the
Hmm.
top, which I actually cracked
Well,
up laughing at. That was mean.
did it? I thought Robert did it because Robert said something later, like, "Oh man, I have to redo that." He
No,
just did
Scotty
that.
did it. It's hard to see because the film isn't,
Yeah, I know it is.
but
I had a couple
Scotty,
things I couldn't tell what was
he
happening.
went like that. I know I had to watch it twice to see it, but he flicked all that
Yeah,
sawdust across it. That's why Robert said, he's like, I just finished varnishing that and now I got to start all over because at that point you have to resand it down and revarnish it because of the sawdust.
yeah.
Scotty is like super
Um,
dick. He also tries to mess with the boat. He grabs like a piece of it and he starts messing with it, and then he realizes that would be too obvious, so he leaves it alone.
yeah.
It was very funny. He
Um,
even leaves a note that he was there. So it's like, why not just do the sabotage, bro?
right. Zach cancels his date with Anne. She's like, "Is it because of the note I had to hang?" And all that,
Hmm.
whatever. Probably was,
Yep.
but he does not admit it.
Well, it's
Noah,
damaging to his career to date her at this point.
and then Noah asks Anne out.
Hmm.
Scotty leaves a note with the license. I was surprised he actually left the license there, but he does.
Yeah.
And that's when he does all those freaky things we talked
Hmm.
about.
He's very freaky.
Um, Rose and Robert do dinner. He sets the mood, turns the lights down, candles on, all that jazz.
Hmm.
Music. Scotty sees Kurt do some weird thing with the model. I couldn't see what was happening. And
He's
confronts
doing
him.
witchcraft, Eric. He's literally doing witchcraft. I actually wrote down what he said at one point. Let me see. He says, "Your wish shall become a reality." And then he has the tiny boat. And I'm like, what is this nonsense? It was so funny.
And
He said a lot of crazy stuff. He was literally saying witchcraft nonsense.
Scotty's like, oh, we're on the same side. Maybe if you need help, let me know. Give me a call.
Hmm.
And Robert romances Rose, and that's all I got for that one. Stop it. Sorry,
Not
El
me,
Cato got me with that.
Monty. Ah, Monty.
Ugh,
We have
just
a
trying to get my
mascot.
milk.
He's an angry cat who likes milk.
He loves everything.
Hmm.
So January 13th, 1982, Laura's at a photo shoot. She gets the photographer guy says like Luke's in New York, but he's actually not. He gets to the boat, he sees the shredded dress and the liquor license and all that, and he gets all crazy because he thinks it's
You would
Scotty,
too
but
if
it's
somebody was in your house tearing up your stuff and
in
spraying
your
your
houseboat.
girlfriend's That's weird. Everything he did was
Yeah.
weird.
He questions Robert about Scotty. Did you hear anything? Did you see anything? Blah blah blah. Rick, Leslie, um, Gail, and Lee are on. They talk about just all their shit. Luke and Laura,
They're
Scotty, all that jazz.
they're going to have dinner at the Weber residence. That's why they're all there talking.
And they talk about the sports clinic, which is
Mhm.
coming soon, I'm sure.
Ugh.
Um,
I'm not a big fan of the sports clinic. You'll never see me be like, "Yay, the sports clinic." I just really didn't like
it
it.
doesn't bother me. I don't think they really use it that much.
I think they use
Um,
it to drive a wedge between Rick and Leslie, and I like them together, so I don't like
as
it.
as Laura's with the photographer, the man is lurking around again, the creepy man with the third eye, whatever, with that
The
ring.
ring, yeah.
They talk and Laura leaves and new Laura comes in. Janine
I
Turner.
saw that. I saw that. Laura Templeton. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, what? I'm
Why is
very
she
confused.
here? Why is she
And
here?
and the creep seems confused too. He was surprised as well. He's like, there's two
Like
of them.
two
He makes a
Lauras?
shady
Mm.
call and he's like, there's two of them. What's going
Yeah, he does.
on? Very weird. Robert is Robert questions Kurt about anyone being on the boat. Um, the photography guy sends the other Laura to Port Charles as well because Laura's supposed to go back too after her dinner with Luke and well, Luke anyway. Luke goes to Scotty's and busts in. Nobody's there. Laura gets to the restaurant and Scotty is there. She's not very pleased. She tries to leave him. He's like, please, like, blah, blah, blah. I want to be forgiven. Like, I don't know what to believe with this man. He's like, I don't,
I feel like he wants to torture Luke 24/7, but he still wants to be Laura's friend and he thinks that can work. Like, I think he's trying to secretly remain Laura's friend while terrorizing Luke. And she just keeps
right.
saying things
Working.
because he says, even at the dinner, he's like, "Can't we be friends?" And she's like, "You know, my husband wouldn't like that." And he's like,
Yeah.
"Whatever." He doesn't really have to know that we're kind of friends. And he's so
Luke,
sweet to her. Meanwhile, he's so creepy and crazy.
Luke calls for Lee, tries to find out where Scotty is. Scotty apologizes to Laura. He's like, I'm just trying to end things and move on and blah, blah, blah. Maybe we can be friends. She's like, yeah, I got to talk to Luke about that. I'm not so sure
Yeah.
about that, buddy. They cheers and they talks about like flying back together. So they actually do. She's very like reluctant because, she should be because
Well,
he's
because she's
shady
going to walk
AF.
off the plane and Luke's going to be there and he's going to be
Right.
furious.
He's supposed to pick her up at the airport. But didn't they take an earlier flight or something? Or I forget. There was
They
something.
took an earlier flight.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing for me was like when they got off the plane and that Scotty kissed her. just like kind of like a goodbye kiss, whatever. He was going to get her luggage and all. And she's like, nah, don't worry about it. And he kisses her. And then some weird dude just walks up and starts berating Laura. Like, who is this guy? He just comes up and he's like, oh, well, I don't want to have a problem with your husband. She goes, that's not my husband. That's my ex-husband. My husband's going to pick me up. And he goes, why would you? I think your husband would be very upset to see that you kiss this man. Who are you, dude? Like, who are you?
And Scotty did ask for that kiss, too. We must point out.
Yeah, it wasn't like he didn't do anything gross. He would just basically like was like goodbye. And like then this dude shows up and is just like, I'm here to judge you. And I'm like, why are you here?
Yeah.
It was so bizarre to me. I'm sorry.
Luke wants Robert to get rid of Kurt now. He doesn't trust him. I have both Laura's, Scott, and Creeper get back to Port Charles.
Yep.
Kurt's doing something creepy that I couldn't figure out.
Witchcraft. He's actually doing the curse. There's something with the boat and with one of Helena's earrings and a sterling purple rose, and
I couldn't see all of that. So it was so dark. I seen like maybe the ring or something, or an earring. Probably
it's one of her earrings, and the only reason I know it's an earring and not the ring, not a ring, is because he flashed back to Liz Taylor holding the earring and saying something about it being an earring.
That's the only reason I knew that. So,
and so apparently this is the curse. And and I'm going to talk to you about a theory in a minute, but like. This is the curse. Remember, people always talk about the curse in the future. This is apparent. This guy Maxwell is doing the witchcraft for this curse, and he's like saying all this crazy shit, like this curse will happen and rain down on you, blah blah blah. And like Laura shows up while he's in the middle of finishing it, and like knocks the boat out of his hands, the little boat. And he's so mad because he didn't get to finish his curse. And he's like, no, what have you done? And I'm like, what have you done? Like, what's happening?
Luke did, right?
No, Luke did. Yeah, you're right. Because Laura finds the little boat later. But Luke not. And then they go on a crazy high-speed chase where they're like rushing around town. It was very fun.
The part where he went to Kelly's did crack me up too, because they're like, "Do you need help, Luke?" He's like, "No, I got it." He calmed down for a minute, said hi, and then he's like, "Yeah,
hi, how's everyone doing? I gotta go beat that guy's ass. I gotta go."
It was funny.
It was really funny.
You want to talk about your theory now, or after we're done?
Go ahead. I'll talk about it when we're done.
So January 14th, 1982, Joe confronts Heather about the clients thing. Scotty and Laura, he wants to be friends again. She's like, no, kiss goodbye. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Luke sees Kurt cursing him. This is that again. So they rewound a little bit.
Back a little bit.
Even though it was a Thursday, but I guess big things are coming, so you have to do that as well when big things are coming. He's just like, Kurt, go away or something. They fight the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Luke, man, I lost my word. What is that word? Chases Kurt.
He chases Kurt to Kelly's, like you said, and then he chases him to a warehouse, and then they destroy the warehouse in a brawl that is insanely cat-like in fighting style.
Yeah.
And then
it was cool and dark.
Kurt Maxwell ends up at Scotty's house and demands that he let him in. And Scotty's like, who the hell are you? And then he's like, oh yeah, the guy from the boat. And he lets him escape out of his fire escape. And then Luke comes head on his heels and is like, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And Scotty's like, I don't even know, man. Like, what am I supposed to do? He just came in here. I let him go through. And he's like, I'm going to kill you. And he's like, whatever. Because Luke says he's going to kill Scotty like 3 times a week.
All the time.
Yeah.
So Mr. Angelino's on again. He comes and he does dinner with Joe. They talk about Heather and all this stuff. And I guess Joe works out his feelings.
Well, Dr. Katz makes a good point about how Joe is holding Heather to standards that are Joe's standards and not Heather's standards. And he can't force Heather to act the way he wants her to act without actually talking to her and explaining that to her.
Right.
Dr. Cass said communicate.
Yeah, he's giving free psychiatric advice.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice of him.
He did a great job, actually, of just leading Joe to water.
Laura gets home. She sees her shredded lady. Luke and Kurt fight again. Kurt asks for help from Scotty, which is what
Yep.
you mentioned already, to get away from Luke. Laura finds the model boat. Luke accuses Scotty of working with the Cassadines after the dude escapes out the window or whatever
No,
the
he was a
fires do.
Cassadine. He didn't know anything about it. He didn't care.
Um, Joe and Heather talk. She says she won't keep secrets from him, and he's like, yeah, wouldn't. And then he has to say it because she doesn't like to tell the truth ever. So so she had no choice. So Luke goes off on Scotty. He of course lies. Stay out of my life, stay away from my wife. Joe and Heather kiss it out after talking for a little bit. So I guess they're together, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
he still has feelings for her. It's a very confusing scenario.
The creep lurks outside while Laura looks for anyone. She can't find anybody. I'm like, everybody's always on this fucking boat, and now nobody's on there. What is going on?
Can we talk about first off, filming wise, what an excellent job they made. Scenes of Laura just being on the boat unpacking her stuff seemed terrifying. Like the
I was
music
gonna
was
say that.
scary. I thought she was going to get attacked at any moment. She's literally putting at one point she takes out her toiletry bag and puts it in the bathroom and I'm like this is so frightening. But it's
It's like
not.
the movie. It's like the movie The Fog. Like I was
Yeah.
like, it's like eerie and like,
Well,
and
it
the
just
music was eerie. Like it was all very
yeah, it
creepy.
was very frightening. What we got one more, right? We got one more and then I'll talk about
Yeah.
theories.
All right. So January 15th, 1982. Tiffany and Delphina are on, and
Hmm.
she designed a dress or something for Laura to wear. She tries to call Laura in New York, but she's not there. Um, because she's home. Luke goes to the airport because I guess he was supposed to be there at a certain time, but
Yeah, he
Laura had gotten
pick her up.
there earlier. That was an annoying conversation with that dude. I'm like, dude, just look her name up. It's not that hard. I
Well,
guess they maybe couldn't
I don't think they kept as good of a track of
back then.
yeah, because think about it. Before 9/11, you used to be able to hang out at the gate until people left.
That's
So
true. That is true.
assuming in the 80s, it was just like if you paid for your ticket, you may not have even had to show ID. You could have just hopped on the plane and gone.
And I didn't fly it for the first time I flew was 2001, right after that. So
Oh, I don't know when the first time I flew, but I do remember. No, it must have been before then because I did go up to the gate and just everybody was at the gate with you, and then you could just get on. It was
yeah,
crazy. It was better,
not for me. Yeah.
less terrifying
Um,
world, I guess.
so Laura unpacks. The phone
Slowly,
doesn't work. No one's around.
there's
I thought
fog.
it was Tiffany. Were Tiffany and Delphina in the boat?
No, Tiffany and Delphina were in Tiffany's apartment, which I think is
Okay.
the same building where Robert's penthouse was, but now Robert's living
I
on the
wasn't
boat.
sure where they were.
They were at Tiffany's apartment.
Okay. Um, Rick and Amy talk, and she talks about how she's happy for Laura, but then you see Laura like being tormented by the fog in the throughout these scenes. Gal and Lee are on. They're concerned about Scott. Well, Lee's concerned about Scotty again, of course.
It's his son.
Um, some dude on the dock asks to help Laura. It's a creepy night. It's very foggy. Um, she goes to use the
He
phone.
tries really hard. He tells her that she shouldn't be out there and that he would walk her to Kelly's. And I
Right.
really wish she had taken him up on that because he's just was
Yeah.
trying so hard to help her. But like, I understand that as a woman on your own, you don't want some weirdo on the docks taking you anywhere.
Yeah. I know he felt legit, but
He
yeah, you
was
never
legit,
know.
but you don't know.
Yeah. He was the only one around.
Mhm.
Uh, Gilly or so the creep. So she goes to use the phone booth at the pier.
Mhm.
There's a creep there. The creep guy's there
With his ring.
outside. She tries to call, I guess, Leslie's, but of course it's busy because they were on the phone getting interviewed. Blah blah blah. Luke tries to hunt Laura down. He goes to Rick and Leslie. She's not there. Laura and the dude are, I guess she's walking toward Kelly's probably, but she's walking like real slow, and then I guess the dude's creeping behind her.
Well, it's also foggy, so
You
she
just
probably
see
had to take her
legs,
time. Yeah.
and you just see legs and fog.
So
He
this
does
is such
something with
great
his
direction.
ring.
Yeah, he holds the ring up, and remember, she said
Yeah,
before that
to
the
his
ring like kind of hypnotizes
like a
her.
third eye. Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. It just looked really dumb because he was like this.
Yeah, it did look dumb. And then she like, it looked like it was she was getting hypnotized, but then she like tried to
Screams.
run. Yeah, it was weird. Um, Leslie and crew panic about where she's at because they're like, oh, she was back already, and we don't know where she's got where she at. Um, Tiffany and Robert are mad at each other. Why were they mad at each other? I don't.
Because he went on a
Mm,
date with Rose and he's supposed to be dating Tiffany
yeah, but how did Tiffany know?
because
Because
they
she
came
wasn't
in
on.
together.
Oh, I must have missed that part.
Rose and Robert, after their date, went to the Irish Fash and went dancing. And then they came in from that party when Delphina and Tiffany were sitting at the table. So she
The
caught him
same,
coming in from a
the same
date.
one, the same one from Ryan's Hope, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know
Um,
if it was
they're
Irish or if it
both
was
in New York.
Scottish. Somebody said something about Scottish, but I don't know. Rose Kelly sounds like the most Irish name I've ever heard.
Yeah. So Luke goes to Kelly's. No Laura. Scotty, Lee, and Gail talk. He's like, I'm still mad and upset. He's trying to get over it. He wants no pressure or he's leaving town again. He was happy in Mexico, but
Mhm.
nobody was leaving him alone. Robert says Laura's not on the boat. And then like it ended with like, I don't know what it was, a shoe or was it the model boat? There was something at the end and I
The
couldn't make it
little
out.
model boat was on the ground.
Okay. That's all I got.
Couple things I want to talk about. One, Lee and Gail were at the Webbers for dinner, and they got a new housekeeper. That was kind of like no, that's a different timeline. But they were having dinner. They were
Right.
having like a huge dinner that Alice made, and before they could even have the dinner is when Luke called, and Lee and Gail got so upset about Scotty. And of course, Rick and Leslie were on the side of their son in law that it ruined their dinner and they ended up leaving. And like later on, when they're at the restaurant before they meet with Scotty, they basically sit at the table and go, that was kind of a dick thing for us to do. We kind of ruined the dinner and we shouldn't have let our kids' issues ruin our issues. And we all acted
Right.
like idiots. And basically, they like kind of resolved to handle that tomorrow like adults instead of how they did. Um,
Yeah.
which was I kind of think is important because Lee is always defending Scotty, and Scotty almost always doesn't deserve it. But the loyalty of his father is like it's kind of wonderful.
Well, because he's guilty. Like Lee's
Yeah, he
always
is
guilty, so
guilty.
he
Yeah, he
feels
feels
like
guilty.
he feels like he's doing something wrong, and this Scotty can't get his shit together. But
Yeah, he's done
you know,
nothing wrong. He's just overcompensating for when he was a drunk. Um,
right?
and he thinks that he failed Scotty, but really, Scotty's got his own problems. And like he said, he
And
was happy in Mexico.
He probably did fail Scotty at one
Sure.
point. But I mean, unfortunately, this is how it turned out.
Yeah, you
This is
can't go
how it
back in
went.
time and you can't fix
You
it.
can't
You
go
just can
back.
only go forward.
Exactly. You can
Um,
apologize and move on.
so I think
But
that was important.
I almost feel like Scotty uses that too to his
Oh,
advantage
absolutely. He
sometimes.
uses it to his advantage all the time. And you know
Hmm.
what? Gail sees it and there's nothing she can do about it because,
Yep.
Gail has the training to realize that that's what Scotty's doing. And she always says
Hmm.
to him, but Lee, maybe we let Scotty figure this one out on his own.
Yeah, your
And
son's a douchebag. What are you going to do?
yeah, well, it's not that she doesn't love Scott. She does. It's just that he is acting ridiculous.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
other thing is my theory about the curse. I feel like the curse hit Laura harder than it does Luke. I feel like the curse kind of terrorizes Laura because if you think about it, Laura is the one who basically finds the little tiny cursed boat. She she's the one who feels weirded out on the boat. And then she's the one that gets kidnapped. And then later on in life, she's the one who ends up in a coma for several years. Like she seems to bear the brunt of this curse. And I think it's
And their
because
kids. And their
right.
kids.
Yeah, and I think it's
Really.
because she was on the boat for as long as she was after he cast that curse. Like he cast that curse, and him and Luke immediately went off running. And I think because she was on the boat that entire time, like unpacking her stuff and all that, like I feel like maybe Helena wanted Laura to take the brunt of that curse anyway.
Like, why does some? Well, she liked Luke. Remember,
She
like
did.
so that's kind of why.
But
I guess
she
it went
says
that
in the
way.
curse, I curse you, Luke and Laura. But does she curse them individually or does she curse their relationship? Because if she did, she
Well,
was successful.
well, what kind of curse is it that needs a part two or a follow-up? Because that's why that man was continuing the curse. Like, how does that work?
I
Like,
don't
she cursed
know.
them, right? And then,
I
like,
feel like she
I was
cursed them
confused
and
by
then
that.
she needed to get her magical items that she imbued with evil, well, like that earring. And she
Right.
needed to get the earring and the tiny boat together so that like her voodoo doll was complete.
And
And
sent her
then
minion and be like, listen, I need to continue the curse, so you need to go and put your voodoo shit all on these things.
and she sends this bro over, and this bro is like come wind, come thunder, come curses, and I'm just like, what is happening? So like, I wonder if because Laura was on the boat while the curse was taking effect, if it was
Right.
stronger when it hit Laura, because Luke. No offense to Tony Gary, but Luke seems to get through this thing pretty much unscathed. Sure, he loses Laura, but he doesn't. His life isn't messed up the way Laura's life tends to go from now on. Like, if you think about all the things that happen in the future, like what happened to Rick and what happened to her going into a coma, what happened with her being kidnapped and held hostage, a lot of all of the badness seems to have fallen like fully onto Laura.
Right. And now I'm wondering what this other Laura has to do with other Laura.
What the Lauras mean? I think we're going to find that out eventually. Actually, I think I know, but I'm not
Because
positive.
I thought the other Laura didn't come until Laura left,
No,
but she
no,
actually
no. She
came
comes on now.
before
I
here.
actually know the name of the creeper. I think it's Gray. Um, but we're
His
gonna
name's
find
Gray.
Gray. Yeah, I'm pretty sure his name is Gray. We'll
Yeah,
find out. We'll find out.
interesting.
Um, so that's what I think. I think the curse is hitting Laura harder.
It makes sense. It does.
It does because of if you look at the future of the show. Now that doesn't mean that people took that into consideration. That could just be
Right.
the happy coincidence of a well-loved character being suffering all the time because that's just how soaps work.
I mean, I always say that currently like Sasha is the most tormented character in like GH in the past 10 years.
Yep, I agree with that. I think Sasha,
She has the curse as
she
well.
has the curse, and I think the curse really broke when she got away from like when Luke died. Like things seem to be looking up pretty much, except for obviously she still has family members dropping dead left, right, and center. But I mean
Right.
that's life on a soap, I guess.
Yeah. That's so disappointing that they killed Luke um off screen. I guess like there was nothing they could do, but like all his family wasn't there. That's why I felt like he was never dead.
No, I don't. I don't. I still
He
don't
was a
believe he's dead. Honestly, I don't. And you know, if I don't see it, well, even if I see it, I don't believe it. I saw AJ die, and he came back 10 years later. I don't believe in their
it just
deaths.
didn't make sense because like none of his family members were there. Like it just
Right.
didn't, it was weird. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough that way. I want to give special props to direction for these last couple episodes because that comedy of errors in the last two episodes of Laura getting in early and no one seeing Laura, even though they were there either five
Right.
seconds before her or after
Right.
her. Like she went down into the belly of the boat to talk to Maxwell because she didn't know where Luke or Robert was. And then Tiffany and Delphina came into the stateroom and looked around and didn't see her and left the boat. So like there was this whole thing where every time somebody got close, like they missed each other. And then there was the whole thing
Yeah.
where Laura wanted her family to do the interview with the phone interview with the newspaper, which meant that her parents were on the phone the entire time this was all happening.
I guess either call waiting wasn't around or
Well,
they didn't
you had
have
to
it.
pay extra for call waiting. So some people didn't have it. Or maybe
You
they
don't think two
heard it.
doctors would have it, but I don't think they had it in the
I
80s
don't
yet,
think they
but
had
they
it
could have.
early in the 80s.
Mm-mm.
But there's so much in this episode. Even when Amy's talking about what a great life Laura has, bad things are currently happening to Laura while she's saying that. So it's like They did such a good job of like
Yeah.
every little detail. The fog, the weird guy who wanted to tell her how to live her life, the nice guy on the docks who wanted to help her, but it was really bizarre. Even the
Right.
photographer was like, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to be in Port Charles one of these days. I'll come to the boat and hang out with you and your husband." And she's like, "That sounds great. He knows all about you. We're going to hang out." That's not going to happen.
Right.
So it's like it was just a really interesting couple of episodes, even though I
It
could have
was.
lived without Luke and Laura fighting again, which is stupid.
Yeah, why couldn't they just have a nice day? Like when you know what's coming, like just give them a nice day.
I
Like
think
I
it's
don't know,
more tragic if you do it your way. Like if they
what
had
a
a
nice day.
beautiful day, like if they had there's only two ways to do it that I think works really well. They have a beautiful
Right.
day where absolutely everything is wonderful and it just shows how well they are doing and how beautiful and wonderful
Right.
the relationship is. Or they have one
Hmm.
big fight that they can never resolve because the other person disappears. Those are the only ways you
Right.
can do it. But they had a nothing fight, the same nothing fight they've been having for weeks.
Every week.
And she's
For the
right about that boat. It
every
sucks.
week since like the first week of December, honestly.
Yeah, the
They
boat
had
is
like
old,
they had
spooky.
like a good week right after they got married and that was it.
I know, and I really feel like, excuse me, they did a disservice to the couple doing that.
I think so too.
I really would have liked it. I would have preferred it if they had had their whirlwind romance, they had gotten married, and then they had been happily doing things together and being super, super happy and united. And then you rip Laura away, and then it's like 20 times the tragedy. Not every day
Hmm.
we're arguing because sometimes we think Luke is a selfless hero who does a lot of amazing stuff. And the next day, he's a creepy, weird, possessive husband who can't understand that his wife has a career. And then the next day, he loves her career and he loves her. Like it's so,
Right.
it feels really schizophrenic.
He's bipolar or something.
Especially when Robert, who's like allegedly, like he's always a little more old fashioned than Luke. He was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, Laura, do what you got to do. You got a career. He wouldn't ask you before he did what he wanted to do. So why would you ask him?" And it's like, that's the relationship you want. That's the guy you want. Like the guy who's like,
Yeah.
live your life, do your thing, girl. But also, Robert's
Interesting.
terrible with women.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
He's a commitment phobe. They're right about him in the future. He is.
Yeah. I guess that's maybe why they liked Holly and him because I mean
Both commitment phobes.
he did marry her to keep her in the country, but like then they found love. Maybe that's more of an appeal to people, like
I think
even though
we're
she
too
did
early in
nothing.
their relationship for us to care about them. Like I know they've been together for a while. We're in '83 for
Yeah,
funsies.
sorry, we're talking about 83.
Not
Not to confuse you with 82,
to
but we're
confuse you. No,
talking.
we'll talk about that later. But anyway, like we're
Yeah, we'll
just
talk about
trying to compare Robert like to himself
yeah,
is kind of
through
what
the
we do.
years.
Yeah. If you watched this when it was on, can you tell us what you thought about the Luke and Laura fighting all the time and supposed to being this because they're billed as the greatest love of all and they got married and
Yeah.
haven't gotten along one day since.
Seriously, it's the truth.
And then Rick and Leslie are like, not my problem. And like it's what
Yep.
weird.
Very interesting. All
I
right.
love General
Well,
Hospital so much.
we would never know since you do like most of our General Hospital podcasts. All right. Well, we'll wrap this one up. Thank you for joining Queers and Soaps. Happy holidays, everyone. We'll bring you some more 1982. Getting toward the end of Laura because right now she disappeared. So is that the end? I don't know.
We will
Kara
know that
might
was a
just put it
Friday
out.
episode. We don't know anything.
That was a Friday.
Yeah.
So subscribe, like, comment. Thank you, Patreon members. Thank you, regular subscribers. I think we're up to 671. We love all of you. Um, have a good one, everyone.
Bye.